Yeah, another very frequent question here about the shades is, should you use Nuln oil or Agrax Earthshade? Yeah, should you use Agrax Earthshade or Nuln oil? And that's a very common question because they are very similar kind of products. And so it can be kind of confusing, and also when you're kind of beginning, which one does what and what's the deal with this? Because we talked about this a little bit in the shades video when we explained all the different shades, because they are kind of the staple, right? If you ask somebody what's his favorite, usually you'll get one of the two, and it varies. So the first thing is, I guess somebody was kind of laughing at me when I said the Nuln oil here, it's changed. So if you look like older tutorials and stuff, Nuln oil is not the same. When the Games Workshop, when they upgraded the contrast, the kind of the second contrast like release, they added a bunch of new colors. They also changed the shades, and they not only changed the pot. As you can see, this is an old Agrax Earthshade, and this is a new Nuln oil, and the pot is not the same size. But they also changed the formula of all of the shades, and most of them are very similar. Like I use this one here, the Agrax. Agrax is very similar, the old one and the new one, but Nuln oil is not the exact same. It's much, much lighter than what it used to be. So that's kind of the first thing. So a lot of the times when you say, oh, they're very similar, it's mostly referring to the previous version. The new one is less potent a little bit, which in my mind, it adds a little bit to the confusion, because that used to be the main difference, is like, well, Agrax Earthshade is lighter than this one, and now it's not really the case. Now the main difference is, as you can tell here from the top, this one is brown, this one is black. That's the main issue. So that's the main thing, the main difference, I guess, is one of them is black, one of them is brown. Now, my personal favorite is Agrax Earthshade. I think I've said this before. If you can only buy one, you buy Agrax Earthshade and you are good to go. It works 83% of the time. If you're new to painting and you're trying stuff out and you're not sure, oh, which shade should I use? Try this one first. 8 times out of 10 is gonna work out. But the new Nuln oil is much more polyvalent than the previous one, where it draws a little bit like hate online, is the people that used to do it. Like I used to use it for X, Y, and Z, and now it's significantly different. And Agrax Earthshade used to be, if you're like an OG, it used to be called like Devlin Mud or Delvin Mud, I don't remember. And that was kind of the game changer. The Devlin Mud, it painted so many armies for so many people, and I think that's where it kind of moved into, oh well, Agrax Earthshade is kind of the same thing, because it sort of is. It's the brown shade. And to give you just a quick example of what you can do is, if you plan a little bit ahead, this Marine here that we'll call Bill the Space Marine here, everything on Bill except for the base and the bright green, everything on Bill is Agrax Earthshade. So this Bill here, Ultramarines blue, Doombull brown, Balthazar gold, Bugman flesh, Zondri dust, I think, for the hair, or some yellowish color, and then slam down Agrax Earthshade. And because I used all of these colors that are very similar in tone, nothing is too dark, nothing is too light, right? Like even the like kind of the blonde hair is still not like a bone color, and it's not also like a super it's not like a bone color, and it's not like a super dark color. Even the brown, the brown is not, we didn't go like the super dark brown like Rhinox or something. If you keep all of your tones kind of in the same place, Agrax Earthshade works with everything. So that's kind of very fun. Now, the main drawback, as you can see, is it dulls down the mini. And I say it's a drawback as in, yeah, if I was looking for a very bright blue Space Marines, doesn't really work. But what it allows us to do is create a very big contrast with something that is very bright, like this insane green. And now our overall drab Space Marine looks like a serious badass with his glowing green weaponry. And you can do this with like lenses, because not all Space Marine carry big ass hammers. But you can do this with like a bunch of little details that maybe you don't paint in a super drab color. So that's the main thing. And now, well, what's if I can do 80% of the thing? Why should I mix? Well, that's, you know, we're not going to kid ourselves. This is very basic. This is I can paint like an entire army like this over a weekend, right? This is getting minis on the table, which for a lot of people is fine, right? Again, you plan ahead. You want to get your Space Marines onto the board. You know, you go to, I don't know, you go play your buddy's garage over the next weekend. Well, you want an army fast. This is fast, right? It works with everything. Cool. But now, with a little bit more detail, let's look at Ted here, which is our buddy Space Marine. And now Ted here, instead of having brown on everything, Ted has both the Agrax Earthshade and the Nuln oil. So the blue and the gold, we stayed the same. The main difference is the gold is a different tone of gold, but it's the same shade. So the blue, exact same blue, shaded the same way. And then the gold, again, shaded with our brown. Now the main difference is for the weapons and for all the little joints in the armor, now we use Nuln oil. And so we get like a darker tone. And so our guy here, Ted, or Bill, I forgot which one's which. Anyway, so our new guy here, now he has a little bit more definition. Even though he doesn't have like a big bright hammer, he's still a little bit more eye-catching, right? That's why we used a different tone of gold to make it a little bit more bright. But overall, this is, again, one thing, right? One color of silver, one color of gold, one color of blue, and then one shade. Very, very basic, but it gives you the idea. And then if you compare, for example, the silver, well, this one is a little bit mild. This one's a little bit darker, even though it's the new Nuln oil. I've kind of covered it a little bit, but let's talk like good uses about this, right? So Agrax Earthshade, 80%, it works every time. Very good uses. I really love it for faces, skin tones and everything. I think if you don't want to go the orange or the reddish route, this works really well for all that's grimdark. Works real well for weathering as well because it's brown, right? And then, of course, gold and bronze. This gold and bronze just like works like a charm every time. It takes these like yellowish gold and it brings them down a little bit, so it's not like kind of like too cartoony. It's still, you know, you're a super warrior with the blue armor. You're still a bit cartoony, right? Yeah, you're not fooling anyone. So the brown is really. Also, I use it a lot for red. I'll put a picture in the official video of a red. Like I like Agrax Earthshade works really well with bright red, especially if you do your colors afterwards, like an extra highlight at the end. And then black here, the Nuln oil, the cool thing about Nuln oil is that now you can use it on grays and even light grays and it still works. I love it for silver, especially lighter silver that I want to keep light, whereas before, because it was so potent, your silver would get like super dark, right? I like it a lot. So for silver, I like it for parchment as well, like skulls and whatnot. It's really great because skull, you want to use bone color, which gets very, very light. But I don't like to turn them into the yellowish color. Like Games Workshop has a tendency to put their skulls in very yellow. So I like the more maybe natural look, and Nuln oil does the job really well. These are a couple of like good uses again. And we've talked about this a little bit. If you get these three colors here, and this one I'll talk in a minute, if you get these three, you can do every single color in the wheelhouse. It works every time. The drawback of using those versus colored shades, like, you know, purple for purple, red for red, green for green, is this will always give you a little bit more like a hurty feel, like a grimdark or a desaturated color. So they're all a little bit toned down. But as we saw here, you can play with this to use your brightness elsewhere. So the third thing I want to talk about is, of course, we've talked about, Nuln is not what it used to be. And the thing I use now, which is when I want to get that darker black, is thin down Black Templar contrast. So Black Templar on its own is a little bit too potent, but if you thin it down just a little bit, you can get like a Nuln oil that's like on roids, right? He's on these Mexican supplements there that are banned everywhere. So Black Templar contrast is kind of a good substitute. You have to be a little bit more careful about it because it's very potent stuff and it doesn't necessarily behave exactly the same, but it gets you in the area. And then the third one, of course, is kind of our bonus round here, and it's Seraphim Sepia. And this is like I guess we'll call it the middle child, even though it's the lightest color, so it should be maybe the younger one, but it's really the middle. It's the one that's ignored, and maybe it shouldn't. So Sepia is I find it really great. It's yellowish. I call it the Mexico tint because I've said this before, but in every video and like games and whatnot, whenever they talk about like New Mexico, they use this filter, so it's like a yellowish tint. And Seraphim Sepia allows you to use lighter color and still keep this kind of vibe of down to earth color going. So it's really kind of the third amigo that you need in this series. But this one is, because it's yellowish, it's very light, so it works with lighter colors only, and you kind of lose it on like the normal stuff. But again, for gold, this gives you another interesting thing because it really pushes the yellow into it. Very interesting on some other lighter colors and all these tones of yellows, also all these grains. If you're painting Dead Guard, a lot of people think Dead Guard, oh, I'll go Agrax Earthshade. Give this guy a little try because of the yellow, it really amps up the grain from the Dead Guard. So Seraphim Sepia is really kind of an outlier in this. You know, this is the real debate. Everybody knows that the Liquid Talent is one of these two, but I'm telling you guys, these two you get a lot of mileage, and this one kind of completes the little trio. I think that covers this. This is a question I get like a lot. So if you have like more questions about this, just drop them somewhere. I'll find you. I'll answer it. That's how I make videos, is for questions that I get about stuff, right? Where it draws,